For a few years in the 1970s, the Mr. Asia syndicate made millions.
Heroin creates its own market. It acts like a form of plague.
Until jealousy, betrayal and murder brought it all crashing down.
Clark would have threatened him. Go and kill him. If you don't, I'm going to kill you and your wife and your son.
This is Mr. Asia, a forgotten history. Listen to episode 5 now on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
The America's Cup successfully defends international sports holders' prize again. The America's Cup remains New Zealand's cup.
Yeah, that was 2021, of course, before Team New Zealand defended in Barcelona last year. Now, Nick Hill, the CEO of Tātaki Auckland Unlimited, that's Auckland City Council's events arm, confirmed this week it had entered talks with holders Team New Zealand to bring the cup back to Auckland for the 2027 defence. Now, reports have that investment required as $150 million, which would come from a combination of private investors, Auckland City ratepayers and central government. That is considerably less than the figure of $200 million, which is often used as a guide to what is necessary to stage the event and fund the campaign. An economic impact report, incidentally, has revealed Barcelona benefited to the tune of 1.8 billion New Zealand dollars from hosting the event last year. Minister for Sport and Recreation, the Honourable Mark Mitchell, is with us. Thanks for joining us on your Sunday afternoon, Mark. How interested are you in helping to bring the America's Cup back to New Zealand in 2027?
Well, look, I'm a huge fan of the America's Cup. I mean, you know, we're a coastal nation and a lot of us have grown up or been involved in or followed or enjoy the ocean and all the water sports that we have. And, of course, sailing is a big part of that. And, you know, I know that we're incredibly proud as a nation in terms of the great success that our America's Cup teams have had.
Have you had any contact or conversations with Grant Dalton so far?
Yeah, I did. I spoke with him the other day, and you know, he just outlined to me that you know, that he is very genuinely looking at trying to host the event or have the event here. Ultimately, that is a decision for Emirates Team New Zealand, and I sort of indicated to him that, of course, we've got the information now that's flowing through that the major events team are looking at in terms of stacking up, as you know, whether or not to make a investment from government.
What does he need from you?
Well, I don't want to get into the numbers because that's for them. So I'm not going to talk about the numbers. You've sort of put 150 million out there, which is the number that he was sort of talking to me about too. But I'm not going to break the numbers down in terms of where the different investment is going to come from. I guess all I'm saying is that from the government side of it is that yes, we want to host major events. Yes, we'd love to host. Of course, we'd love to have the America's Cup back home in New Zealand. But of course, you know, we're in a situation where every dollar counts, and we have to make sure that we're using that responsibly and that we're maximising the value of that for Kiwis.
How do you do that, Mark? How do you calculate the return on taxpayer investment for this or for any other sporting event you put your money towards?
Well, that's a big part of the work that's going on at the moment is to actually try and identify that and see exactly, you know, how much value there is in it for us as a country. So, and we'll get some advice back on that shortly.
The economic impact report, as I mentioned before, revealed Barcelona's benefited to the tune of 1.8 billion New Zealand dollars from hosting, but there are many variables to the way any economic impact study is compiled. They often have to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt. How do you work out what's real and what's not?
Well, I mean, that's for the experts to do, and they're working on that now, and then they will come back and they'll advise myself, the Minister of Finance, and my associate, Chris Bishop, on that.
As you look to get tourism numbers back to pre-COVID numbers, isn't this exactly the type of event that you should be investing in?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, fundamentally, we'd love to be. If we had an endless, if we had a money pit, you know, it'd be fantastic. We want to try and get as many major events as we can into the country. Absolutely. It comes down to, again, making responsible decisions around where we're investing our money as a country.
Who do you have to convince?
Well, it's not a matter of me having to convince anyone. It's a matter of us being convinced as a government, as a cabinet, that this is the best use of New Zealanders' money.
Do you take into account the intangible benefits to New Zealanders from events like this as well when you are going through your decision making?
Yeah, look, I think that's important. I do think that's important to try and capture that somehow in the advice that's coming forward. But like I said, that work is being done at the moment. The advice will come forward, and then we'll have a chance as ministers and as a cabinet to make a decision.
Now, Auckland Mayor Wayne Brown has said he wants a bed tax, a bed night visitor levy, 2.5% to 3% to help pay for his share.
Yeah.
That needs parliamentary approval. Would you be keen to see that legislation passed?
Yeah, he's spoken to me about that also. And look, Louise Upson is fully engaged on this. It's in her portfolio area, which is obviously tourism. From a government perspective, we are trying to drive our tourism numbers back up again as a country. It's a big part of what we do and a massive contributor to our GDP overall. The employment, jobs, and showcasing, what an incredible country we are. And she's the one responsible for doing the work around making decisions that will attract more tourists to New Zealand, and so she's engaging on the bed tax.
So there's a few moving parts here. The clock is ticking, though. There are other places who are keen to host. Valencia, Italy, Greece have been mentioned. Team New Zealand have committed to announcing the 2027 venue by June the 20th. It's the 9th of March now. Do you need to move quickly on this?
Look, I think they are moving quickly. In fact, I know that they are. We want to host major events in New Zealand. We just have to make sure that we've been responsible in the way that we're using taxpayers' money.
All right. So you're keen to do it if the numbers stack up?
Yeah, I'm very keen to do it. I think that, like I said to you, and I know that that my colleagues in government are as well. We want to have major events here. It's a big. I was down at the New Zealand Open down at Millbrook last weekend. It's a fantastic event. We want to be hosting these events in New Zealand. But like I said to you, what all roads lead back to the fact that we inherited a pretty bad situation for us as a country fiscally. We were heading towards being broke, and we've got to get ourselves back on a positive track, and that means being really careful and being responsible with the money that we're spending.
What's your gut telling you? Do you think we can start preparing for its return in 2027?
I don't want to get ahead of the advice that's coming forward to us. No, I think as a country we've been through a really tough time. There's no doubt about that. We had inflation at high rates for far too long. Interest rates have just killed people. They're living from week to week. It has been very, very tough. But I honestly feel that the back half of this year, there's some green shoots starting to show. Inflation now is down. Interest rates are starting to come down. People are starting to refix. I believe there'll be some new energy and optimism in our country, and things will be looking different towards the back end of the year.
All right. Well, I hope so too. And look, I don't think you'll get an argument from too many people involved in the watching of big events. Were you at Sail GP in January? Did you get the chance to get down there?
No, and I was really annoyed that I didn't because I was really happy to see the event here and being raced in Auckland. Russell Coots is actually up in my electorate. I've quite a bit to do with him. He's invested heavily into our local Manly Sailing Club there and with local events. And I would have loved to have been there, but I was having to do another event, I think, with my police portfolio.
Fair enough. Hey, Mark, appreciate your time on a Sunday. Thanks for joining us on ZB.
Thanks for having me on, mate. Have a good one.
You have a good one too. Mark Mitchell there, the Honourable Mark Mitchell, one of his portfolios, Minister for Sport and Recreation.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.